She tried to smile, but her hands gave her away. The morning sun had just started to spill through the smudged windows of Miller's diner, turning the silver coffee pots into tiny mirrors of gold. Outside, a neon sign flickered in stubborn rhythm. Open 6 a.m., like it was as tired as the people inside. Behind the counter stood Megan Ross, 26, with dark circles under her eyes and a uniform that had lost its color long ago. She poured coffee into chipped mugs, pretending not to notice the impatient sighs from the regulars. The smell of burnt toast hung in the air, mixed with the low hum of an old ceiling fan. To most customers, she was just another waitress in a small-town diner, quiet, clumsy, forgettable. But if you looked closely, you'd see something deeper. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Her hands trembled when she set the pot down. At the corner booth, Ethan Clark watched quietly. He wasn't the kind of man who stared. He was just observant, the way single fathers become when life teaches them to notice the small things. His daughter, Lily, sat across from him, swinging her legs, tracing circles on the fogged-up window with her finger. Ethan was 35, a mechanic who smelled faintly of engine oil and aftershave. To anyone else, he was just another customer with morning coffee. But today, something about that waitress unsettled him. Megan approached with a pot of refills. "Top you off?" she asked, her voice small but kind. "Sure," Ethan said. "Thanks." Lily peeked up from her drawing and whispered, "Your smile looks tired." Megan froze, just for a second, then chuckled softly. "You're not wrong," she said. Her laugh was brittle, like thin glass holding back years of exhaustion. Ethan smiled, embarrassed. "Sorry about her. She's honest." But Megan just nodded. "That's a good thing," she said. "Honesty." Then she walked away, shoulders slightly straighter, as if those few words had reminded her she still existed. The diner hummed on. Forks clattered. Someone at the counter complained about their eggs being cold. Rita, the manager, sharp-eyed and sharp-tongued, barked orders from the back, her tone slicing through the chatter. Megan moved faster, balancing plates, wiping counters, trying to stay invisible. But every movement betrayed her fatigue. Her hands shook when she refilled the sugar jar. Her eyes darted toward Rita whenever she made a sound. Ethan noticed everything. He'd seen those tremors before, not from caffeine or nerves, but from fear, the kind of fear that comes from walking on eggshells too long. He looked around. Nobody else seemed to see it, or maybe they didn't want to. Lily tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, she looks like she wants to cry." Ethan hesitated, searching for words. "Yeah, maybe she does." He watched as Megan stumbled slightly, catching a tray before it tipped. Rita's glare cut through the room. "Careful, Megan. That's the third near miss this week." The laughter from a nearby table stung the air like static. Megan mumbled an apology and hurried back to the kitchen. Ethan's jaw tightened. He wanted to say something, anything, but he also knew that not all battles needed noise. Sometimes the best thing you can do is watch long enough to understand what's really happening. Minutes passed. The diner filled and emptied again. The coffee pot hissed its last sigh. And when Megan returned to wipe their table, Ethan saw it clearly this time. Her hands trembling, her eyes red, her lips pressed tight to stop them from quivering. He leaned forward slightly. "You sure you're okay?" Her eyes flicked toward the kitchen window, Rita's silhouette looming behind the order slip rail. "Yeah," she whispered. "I'm fine." But she wasn't fine. Her "I am fine" was the kind people say when they've learned no one really wants the truth. Lily slid her napkin across the table, a simple drawing of a stick figure waitress holding a coffee pot with a sun above her head. "Can I give her this?" she asked. Ethan smiled gently. "Maybe later, sweetheart." He looked back toward the counter, where Megan stood staring into a cup of coffee she'd forgotten to pour. Her reflection rippled in the dark surface, tired, worn, almost ready to break. And that's when Ethan saw it. The moment that would change everything. Rita passed behind her and muttered something sharp. Megan flinched. Not the startled kind, the conditioned kind. Fear lived in her shoulders now. Ethan's coffee went cold, untouched. Something inside him shifted, that old protector's instinct waking up again. He couldn't leave, not after seeing that, because sometimes the smallest tremble tells the biggest story, and sometimes the kindest thing a person can do is simply notice. The lunch rush came and went. By 2 o'clock, Miller's diner had fallen into that fragile afternoon quiet. Half-empty coffee cups, crumbs on the tables, sunlight turning everything warm and sleepy. But Megan wasn't resting. Her apron was damp, her steps slower now. She wiped the counter again and again. Not because it was dirty, but because keeping busy felt safer than standing still. Behind the kitchen door, Rita's voice cut through like sandpaper. "Table 6 complained again, Megan. You think I'm running a charity here?" Megan's breath caught. She nodded quickly, eyes lowered. "I'm sorry. It won't happen again." "Won't happen again," Rita mocked. "You said that last week when you spilled coffee on that trucker's jacket. Get your head straight." The door swung shut, but the words stayed. They always did. Megan swallowed hard. She had been at this diner for 2 years now. Long enough to memorize every face, every regular's order, every tone in Rita's voice. And yet, every shift still felt like walking barefoot across glass. She tried to shake it off, smile, keep moving. But her body remembered what her mind tried to forget. Every harsh word, every raised tone, every night she went home counting tips that barely covered rent, and every morning she came back because she had no choice. At the corner booth, Ethan and Lily were still there. Lily was coloring another picture, this one of a house with flowers and a cat on the porch. Ethan had moved from watching to waiting. He knew that look in Megan's eyes, the one people wear when they've learned to survive quietly. He'd seen it before, in the mirror. When his wife Emma got sick, he'd carried that same silent fear, the kind that doesn't scream. It just stays. You learn to hide it from your kid, from your coworkers, even from yourself. You tell everyone you're fine, until one day, someone finally looks close enough to see you're not. Lily tugged his sleeve. "Daddy, can I give her the picture now?" He smiled faintly. "Yeah, go ahead." Lily slid off the booth, sneakers squeaking across the tile, and approached the counter. "Miss Waitress?" she said shyly. Megan turned, startled. "Oh, hi, sweetie." Lily held out the drawing. "It's for you. You look like you need something happy." For a moment, Megan just stood there, stunned. Then she took the paper with trembling fingers. A simple drawing, sunshine, flowers, a smiling waitress, and underneath it, in shaky letters, "You make people happy." Her throat tightened. No one had said something kind to her in weeks, maybe months. She blinked fast, forcing the tears down. "Thank you, sweetheart. That's really sweet." Ethan watched from the booth, eyes soft but knowing. Sometimes kindness doesn't fix things right away. It just reminds people what warmth feels like. But Rita saw it too, and she didn't like what she saw. "Back to work, Megan," she snapped from the kitchen door. "This isn't art class." The moment shattered. Megan quickly tucked the drawing into her apron pocket and whispered, "Sorry, sweetie, I've got to go." Lily looked confused. Ethan motioned her back gently. "It's okay, honey. Let her work." As Megan disappeared into the kitchen, the door swung open just long enough for Ethan to glimpse something. Rita grabbing a plate, her voice sharp, Megan flinching back slightly. He couldn't hear the words, but he didn't need to. He'd seen that kind of fear before. Quiet, learned, buried deep. Lily whispered, "Why's she scared of that lady?" Ethan sighed. Some people forget that others have hearts too. Outside, clouds began to gather. A soft drizzle tapped against the windows, small hesitant drops, like the sky itself didn't know whether to cry or hold back. Inside, the diner lights flickered. Megan re-emerged, eyes down, clutching her apron like armor. She avoided Ethan's gaze this time, embarrassed maybe, or afraid of being seen too clearly. Ethan stood, leaving a tip bigger than the bill. As he helped Lily with her coat, he looked back one last time. Megan was wiping the same counter again, pretending she didn't notice him. But she did. Her eyes flickered up for a heartbeat, a silent thank you, fragile but real. He nodded once, a quiet promise in his expression. "I see you." And though no words were spoken, something small shifted between them, a thread of empathy stretching across the room. Because fear, when met with kindness, doesn't vanish. It simply starts to loosen its grip. As they stepped out into the rain, Ethan knew one thing for certain. He couldn't just walk away anymore. By the time Ethan and Lily reached the parking lot, the drizzle had turned into a steady rain, the kind that blurs neon signs and turns every reflection into watercolor. Lily hopped over puddles, giggling as her tiny boots splashed. Ethan smiled, though his mind was elsewhere. He couldn't shake Megan's eyes from his thoughts, that fragile glance, part apology, part plea. He'd seen broken spirits before. But this was different. This was a woman living in quiet survival. As he buckled Lily into her car seat, a flash of movement caught his eye. Through the diner's window, Rita standing too close to Megan. Megan's shoulders stiffened. Her lips moved. An apology, maybe. Then Rita's hand cut through the air, pointing sharply toward the back room. Ethan froze. His first instinct was to storm back inside, but Lily's small voice pulled him back. "Daddy?" she asked softly. "Is the waitress in trouble?" He took a long breath. "Maybe, sweetheart, but she'll be okay." He didn't believe it. Not really. He drove off slowly, watching the diner fade in the rearview mirror. But the rain only made it harder to forget. That night, the storm grew heavier. Thunder rolled like an old memory. Ethan sat at the kitchen table, a mug of coffee in one hand, his phone in the other. He'd looked up the diner's number 3 times already, and 3 times he'd stopped short of pressing call. What would he even say? "I saw your waitress being mistreated." Would she thank him? Or would it make things worse? He rubbed his eyes. "It's not your problem," he muttered. But then he saw it. On the counter, beside Lily's school folder. A small crayon drawing, the one Lily had made for Megan. The smiling waitress, the sunshine, the words, "You make people happy." He exhaled slowly. "Guess it's our problem now?" He pressed call. The line rang twice before a shaky voice answered. "Miller's Diner." "Megan?" A pause, then a soft gasp. "Sir? From earlier today?" "Yeah. Sorry to bother you. I just wanted to check if you're okay." There was silence. Not the kind filled with hesitation, but the kind filled with disbelief. Nobody ever called to ask that. Finally, she whispered, "You shouldn't. Rita doesn't like when—" Her voice cracked. The line rang twice before a shaky voice answered. "Miller's Diner." "Megan?" A pause, then a soft gasp. "Sir? From earlier today?" "Yeah. Sorry to bother you, I just wanted to check if you're okay." There was silence, not the kind filled with hesitation, but the kind filled with disbelief. Nobody ever called to ask that. Finally, she whispered, "You shouldn't. Rita doesn't like when—" Her voice cracked. Ethan's jaw tightened. "You don't owe her fear. You didn't do anything wrong." Megan laughed softly, the kind that breaks your heart because it's not laughter at all. "That's easy to say when you're not here." Ethan stared out the window, rain streaks racing each other down the glass. "I used to be," he said quietly. "What do you mean?" "I worked construction. My boss—" He used to yell at this one guy until he quit. We all saw it. None of us said a word. I told myself it wasn't my place. He swallowed hard. That man took his life a month later. The phone stayed silent. Then Megan whispered, "I'm sorry." He shook his head. "Don't be. Just don't let her make you feel small." Another pause, and this time he could hear her crying softly, not loud. Just the kind of crying that happens when someone finally feels seen. After a while, she said, "You should get some rest." "Promise me you'll be safe tonight," Ethan said. I'll try." The call ended. But something had changed. For the first time, Megan felt a stranger's belief wrap around her like a fragile shield. And for Ethan, that single phone call reopened a part of himself he thought had gone numb, the part that couldn't watch injustice quietly anymore. Hours later, in her small apartment above the laundromat, Megan sat on her bed with the diner's fluorescent light still burned into her eyes. Her uniform hung damp from the rain. Her apron, still holding Lily's drawing, lay folded on her lap. She pulled out the picture, smoothing the wrinkles with trembling fingers. "You make people happy." The words hit differently now. Someone had seen her pain and didn't look away. Outside, the storm began to ease. Drops slowed. The night grew calm again. And somewhere, deep in her chest, the smallest flicker of hope returned. Not enough to change her world yet, but enough to remind her it could change. She reached for her phone again. This time, it was her who made the call. A soft voice answered, "Employee hotline. How can we help?" Her heart pounded. "My name is Megan. I need to report something." She hesitated, tears falling freely now, but her next words came steady, almost brave. "It's about my manager." Ethan woke early. He hadn't really slept, just drifted in and out, haunted by the sound of her voice on the phone. Megan, a woman he barely knew, yet somehow couldn't stop thinking about. The rain had washed the city clean, but inside him, something still churned. That familiar guilt, the same kind that had once kept him awake after Emma died. He used to think courage was only for heroes. Firefighters, soldiers, people in uniforms. Now he understood. Sometimes courage is just not walking away. He poured himself a cup of coffee, the air thick with morning stillness. Lily padded in, hair messy, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, you're up early." He smiled softly. "Couldn't sleep, bug." She climbed onto a chair beside him. "Is the waitress okay?" Ethan stared into his mug for a long time before answering. "She's trying to be." Lily nodded, solemn in that way only children can be. "You always say when someone's hurting we don't look away." Her words hit him like sunlight breaking through clouds. He reached over, brushed a strand of hair from her face. "That's right." That settled it. He couldn't just let fear win. Not again. By mid-morning, he'd arranged for Lily's neighbor, Mrs. Dalton, to watch her for a few hours. When she asked where he was going, he only said, "To help someone who forgot what kindness feels like." The drive to the diner was short but heavy. The closer he got, the more his hands gripped the steering wheel. He wasn't as sure what he was going to do, only that he had to do something. The diner was quieter than usual when he walked in. A few regulars sat by the window, steam rising from their mugs. The air felt tense, heavy. Megan was at the counter again, eyes puffy, trying her best to hide it. When she saw him, her breath caught. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "I know." He slid onto a stool, voice calm. "But I couldn't stay away." She shook her head, whispering fast. "If Rita sees you talking to me again, she'll what?" Ethan's voice was quiet, but there was steel beneath it. "Keep treating you like this? You don't deserve that, Megan." She looked down, whispering so low he barely caught it. "I called the hotline last night." He blinked, surprised. "You did?" She nodded. I don't know what came over me. I just... I couldn't keep pretending. Her voice cracked. I think I'm scared of what comes next. Ethan leaned forward, lowering his tone. Being scared doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're human. What matters is you did something. For the first time, her eyes lifted fully to meet his, and in them he saw it, that fragile strength beginning to stir beneath the years of silence. The kitchen door slammed open. Rita stepped out, wiping her hands on a towel. Her eyes landed on Ethan, then on Megan. Well, well, look who's back. Didn't you get enough of your sad little charity act yesterday? Ethan turned slowly. His voice stayed level, but his gaze was unwavering. I'm just having coffee, Rita scoffed. Then drink it and leave. My employees have work to do. Megan flinched, but Ethan didn't move. He looked at her once, steady, reassuring, then back at Rita. You should probably start being nicer to your employees, he said quietly. Somebody might finally notice how you treat them. For the first time, Rita's confidence faltered. Her lips pressed into a thin line. What's that supposed to mean? Ethan stood up, calm as stone. Exactly what it sounds like. He left the money for the coffee on the counter and turned to Megan. You don't have to face this alone anymore. And just like that, he was gone. Later that afternoon, Megan sat in the diner's back room, the phone pressed to her ear. HR was on the other end, kind but firm. Yes, we've received your report. We'll be investigating immediately. Could you come in tomorrow to give a statement? Her voice trembled, but she said the words anyway. Yes, I'll be there. When she hung up, her reflection in the metal fridge door caught her eye. Same uniform, same tired face. But something small had shifted, a spark behind the exhaustion. She reached into her apron, pulling out Lily's crayon drawing again. The paper was creased, smudged from work, but the colors still glowed. You make people happy. This time she smiled, because for the first time in years, she believed it might be true. Soft music builds, hopeful piano and strings. That evening, Ethan got a text, a single message. Megan, they listened. Thank you. He stared at it for a long time, a faint smile forming. Maybe courage didn't always roar. Sometimes it just whispered back, I'll stand with you. Music swells and fades. Scene ends in warm light. Her breath hitched. Today? Yes, ma'am. Around noon. Megan hung up slowly, her pulse hammering in her ears. For a moment, fear whispered, You've just made everything worse. But then she heard Ethan S.'s voice echo in memory. Being scared doesn't mean you were weak. It means you're human. She drew a deep breath and stepped back into the main room. It was almost noon when two HR representatives walked in, a woman in a navy coat and a man carrying a clipboard. The diner went quiet, curiosity buzzing like static. Can we speak with the manager, please? The woman asked politely. Rita looked up, confused. That's me. What's this about? Before they could answer, Megan felt every eye in the room on her. Her stomach turned. The HR woman continued. We received a workplace conduct report involving this location. We're here to discuss it. Rita's face shifted, from confusion to indignation to a sharp, dangerous glare. Her eyes snapped to Megan. You! Megan froze. Rita's voice rose, brittle with fury. You went behind my back? After everything I've done for you? Ethan stood from his seat. Maybe you should hear her out. Rita spun toward him. Stay out of this! This is my business! Megan's hands trembled, but she didn't back away this time. Her voice, quiet but firm, broke the air like sunlight through clouds. No, Rita, it's not just your business. The room stilled. Even the hum of the coffee machine seemed to pause. Megan took a shaky breath. I reported you, because what you've been doing isn't right. You humiliate me in front of customers, call me names, and make me feel like I'm nothing." Her eyes shimmered, but her voice didn't crack. "But I am something. I'm a person, and I deserve respect." The HR reps exchanged a glance and nodded. Rita's jaw tightened. "You think they'll believe you over me?" The HR woman stepped forward, her tone professional but firm. "We've already reviewed security footage and witness statements. There's enough evidence to proceed with disciplinary action." A murmur rippled through the diner. Someone at a table whispered, "Good for her." Rita's face drained of color. She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Ethan approached slowly, placing a hand on the counter between them. "Looks like she finally found her voice," he said softly. Rita glared at him, then turned and stormed into the back room. The door slammed behind her. Silence filled the diner for a long moment. Then, one by one, customers began to clap. Quietly at first, then louder, until the sound filled the space. Megan stood frozen, tears streaming down her cheeks. The HR woman smiled gently. "You did the right thing, Ms. Ross." Ethan walked closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "See? They heard you." Megan let out a trembling laugh. "I can't believe it's over." He smiled back. "No, it's just beginning." Music rises, soft piano and strings blending with the sound of gentle applause. As the crowd settled, Megan exhaled deeply, shoulders finally relaxed. For the first time in years, she stood tall, not as the tired waitress, not as the clumsy girl, but as a woman who remembered her worth and spoke it aloud. Soft music plays, piano and light acoustic guitar. Morning sunlight glows through diner windows, soft and golden. The diner felt different the next day. No one said it out loud, but everyone felt it. The shift, the release, the strange quiet that follows a storm. The corner booth where Ethan and Lily often sat was empty now, but his words still lingered in Megan's mind. "They heard you." She stood behind the counter, pouring coffee with steadier hands. For the first time in years, her movements weren't weighed down by fear. There was no glare watching her from across the room, no sharp voice whispering insults under breath. Rita's office door remained closed, a printed notice taped to the glass. "Manager on leave, pending review." Megan read it once, exhaled, and smiled faintly. The regulars trickled in slowly, eyes darting around as if unsure of the new balance. For weeks, they had watched the tension play out in small gestures, a flinch, a glare, an apology muttered through trembling lips. Now, they watched something else unfold. Peace. "Morning, Meg," said Tom, the retired mailman who always ordered black coffee and dry toast. She blinked. He'd never called her by name before. "Morning, Tom," she replied softly. He handed her a folded note before she could ask what he wanted. Inside, written in uneven handwriting, were just 5 words. "Proud of you for standing." Her throat tightened. She looked up, but he'd already turned to his newspaper. In the kitchen, the new interim supervisor, a kind woman named Clara, was humming softly while prepping plates. "You did the right thing, honey," she said as Megan passed. "Some of us have been waiting for that for a long time." Megan stopped mid-step. You knew?" Clara nodded. "Knew something was wrong. Didn't have the courage to speak up." She smiled gently. "But you did. And now everyone else can breathe again." Those words sank deep. It wasn't just her life that changed yesterday. It was the whole rhythm of this place. A chain of quiet hearts that finally felt safe to beat freely again. Around lunchtime, the familiar jingle of the doorbell pulled her from her thoughts. Lily burst in first, her pink backpack bouncing, her laughter echoing. Ethan followed, smiling in that calm, quiet way of his. Megan's smile bloomed instantly. "Hey, you two." Lily hopped onto her usual seat by the window. "We came to see if you're okay." I'm better than okay, Megan said, setting a plate in front of her. Guess what? They're letting me stay, and Rita's not coming back. Lily gasped. Really? Ethan grinned, his voice low and warm. Told you she'd find her light. The little girl leaned forward. You're brave, Miss Megan. Daddy says brave people make the world better. Megan's eyes glistened. Your daddy's a smart man, Lily giggled. He's okay. They laughed. That easy, human laughter that only happens when the air is finally clear. After they ate, Ethan pulled out a small envelope from his jacket. Some of the regulars wanted to do this, he said, sliding it toward her. She frowned, opening it carefully. Inside was a card signed by dozens of customers, each with a small note. We're proud of you. Thank you for speaking up. You reminded us to be kind. And tucked in between was a folded $50 bill. Megan covered her mouth. Ethan, I can't. He shook his head. You didn't ask for it. You earned it. For a long moment she couldn't speak. Her chest ached with the kind of warmth that had nothing to do with the coffee steam rising beside her. Later that afternoon, the diner quieted again. Megan wiped the counter slowly, lost in thought. She realized something profound. Courage doesn't just stop when the moment ends. It ripples, through people, through places, through time. The dishwasher boy, Jamie, who once never spoke above a whisper, came up to her timidly. Miss Megan? She smiled. What's up? He shuffled his feet. I told my mom I want to go back to school. After what you did, I thought maybe I could too. Her eyes softened. That's wonderful, Jamie. He smiled shyly. I just wanted to thank you. As the sun dipped lower, turning the diner's chrome edges gold, Megan leaned against the counter. Outside, cars passed. People laughed. Life went on. But everything felt lighter. Ethan and Lily waved from the parking lot as they left. Lily pressed her hands to the glass, forming a heart shape. Megan returned the gesture, smiling through tears. She whispered, You started this, little one. That night, as she locked up, the reflection in the diner window showed a woman she barely recognized, still wearing the same uniform, still standing in the same place, but different. Her shoulders were straighter, her eyes steadier, her heart unafraid. She turned off the lights one by one, whispering into the soft dark. Maybe kindness really is contagious. The world looked different to Megan now. Not because it had changed overnight, but because she had. A week had passed since the confrontation, since Ethan stood by her side, since the courage that had been buried under years of fear finally rose and spoke. The diner still smelled like coffee and maple syrup, but the air was new, lighter, alive, forgiving. Megan stood by the counter, wiping a spotless surface, her reflection faint in the chrome. No longer the trembling woman who apologized for existing. Now, there was quiet certainty in her eyes. Not arrogance, just peace. Outside, the sky stretched wide and blue, early summer sunlight glinting off cars and the small-town storefronts. The diner had become busier than ever. People came not just for pancakes and coffee. They came for her story. They whispered about the waitress who stood up, the one who showed kindness could coexist with courage. Megan didn't chase the attention, didn't crave it. But every time a stranger left her a bigger tip or offered a simple good for you, she smiled, because she understood now what Ethan meant when he said, Sometimes the world just needs to see someone do the right thing. Around mid-morning, the door chimed softly. And there they were again, Ethan and Lily. Megan's heart lifted instantly. Lily ran in first, her hair in two bright braids. Miss Megan, she shouted. Daddy said we can sit in your section again. Megan laughed. You better. I saved your booth. Ethan followed, a quiet grin on his face. We missed your pancakes, he said. Sure you did, she teased. Or maybe it's just the coffee. He chuckled, settling into the booth. Maybe both. There was something unspoken between them, gratitude, respect, and the faint warmth of something neither of them wanted to name yet. As Megan served their plates, Lily handed her a small drawing folded in half. "I made this for you," she said shyly. Megan opened it. Crayons had filled the page with color, a smiling waitress, a man, a little girl, and a bright sun above them. Across the top, in uneven letters, "Thank you for being brave." Her throat tightened. "Lily, it's beautiful." The little girl beamed. "You helped Daddy believe people can still be kind." Ethan looked down, almost embarrassed. "She's right," he admitted quietly. "You reminded me of a few things I'd forgotten, too." Megan met his eyes, calm, steady, full of understanding. "Like what?" He hesitated, then smiled faintly. "That the world's still good, if we decide to make it that way." Later that day, as the lunch rush faded, Megan took her break outside. She sat on the bench near the diner window, sipping her coffee slowly, watching the world go by. A breeze carried laughter from across the street. Kids playing, dogs barking, life happening. For the first time in years, she wasn't just surviving it. She was in it. She pulled out her phone, something she'd rarely done except for bills and reminders, and opened a blank note. At the top, she typed, "My second beginning." Below it, she started to write about that day, not as a victim story, but as a survivor's testimony. The trembling hands, the broken glass, the stranger who refused to look away. She didn't know why she was writing, only that she had to. Maybe someone else would read it one day. Someone who needed to be reminded that kindness and courage weren't opposites, but partners. A soft knock on the window startled her. Ethan stood there, smiling through the glass. "You off soon?" he asked when she stepped outside. "Yeah, just about." "Lily and I are heading to the park. You should come." Megan hesitated, then smiled. "I'd like that." As they walked, the air felt easier, the sun warmer. Lily skipped ahead, chasing butterflies, her laughter ringing like bells. Ethan walked beside Megan in silence for a while, then said, "Funny how one moment can change everything." She nodded. "It didn't just change me, it changed this whole town." He looked around, at the small shops, at familiar faces smiling as they passed. "Maybe you're right." She smiled softly. Maybe courage really does ripple out. When they reached the park, Lily ran toward the swings, her joy untamed. Ethan and Megan sat on a nearby bench. He turned to her. "So, what's next for you?" She thought for a moment. "Maybe I'll finish that business course I dropped years ago. Maybe even open my own place someday." He grinned. "You'd make a great owner." Megan looked up at the sunlight filtering through the trees, her heart full. "For now," she said, "I'm just going to keep showing up. With kindness." Ethan nodded. "That's a good start." As the sun dipped low, Megan watched Lily swing higher and higher, laughter filling the golden sky. She felt peace settle inside her. Not the fragile kind that could be broken by one bad day, but the kind built on truth and courage, the kind that lasts. And for the first time in years, Megan whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude. For strangers who cared, for voices that spoke, for second chances that came wrapped in small acts of love. Soft orchestral music fades in, gentle strings and piano. Scene opens on an early morning sky. 6 months had passed since that day. The diner still stood on the corner of Maple Street. Same chipped sign, same smell of fresh coffee wafting through the doors. But it wasn't at the same place anymore. A small flyer now hung on the bulletin board by the entrance. "Employee of the Month, Megan Riley." Underneath, a photo. Megan smiling, confident, her apron replaced by a crisp navy blouse. She wasn't serving tables anymore. She was managing them. Her first day as assistant manager had been quiet, but full of meaning. She still remembered unlocking the door that morning, her hands trembling. Not from fear this time, but from disbelief. This used to be the place that broke me, she thought. Now it's the place that made me. The coffee machine hissed, lights flickered on, and the sound of laughter from the kitchen felt like sunlight warming old wounds. She turned, catching her reflection in the window. Soft smile, tired eyes, but steady. She'd promised herself something the day she took this role. No one under her watch would ever feel small again. Around mid-morning, a familiar voice broke her thoughts. "Hey, Miss Megan." It was Lily, running through the door like she always did, braids bouncing. Ethan followed with his easy grin, holding a small potted plant. Megan laughed. "You two really don't know how to enter quietly, do you?" Lily held up the plant proudly. "We brought you something. Daddy said it's called a peace lily." Megan crouched down to Lily's level, smiling warmly. "It's beautiful. You didn't have to." Ethan shrugged, setting it on the counter. "It reminded us of you, quiet but stronger than anyone realizes." She met his eyes, a wave of gratitude passing silently between them. Lily tugged on her apron. "Miss Megan, are you the boss now?" Megan grinned. "Something like that." "Does that mean you can make Daddy free pancakes?" They all laughed, the kind of laughter that only happens when hearts are light again. Later that day, as the lunch rush faded, Megan stepped outside for air. The autumn wind had just begun to whisper through the trees, cool, golden, carrying hints of change. She pulled her phone from her pocket. A notification blinked. New message from HR. For a second, her stomach clenched. Old habits, old fear. But then she exhaled and opened it. It was an official update. Following internal review, Mr. Carson's employment termination remains in effect. Several employees have since reported similar experiences. Your bravery encouraged others to speak. Megan read the line again, her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of relief. She wasn't just safe. She'd started something bigger. That evening, as the diner quieted and the lights dimmed, Ethan and Lily were still there, waiting for her shift to end. Ethan stood when she came out, holding 2 paper cups. "Coffee, extra caramel, your favorite." She smiled, taking it. "You remembered." He nodded toward the empty booth near the window. "Sit for a minute." They sat across from each other, the same booth where it all began months ago, when she'd dropped a tray and he'd seen her tears. The world outside looked softer through the glass, streetlights glowing like candles, rain starting to fall gently again. Full circle. Megan looked at him. "Funny, isn't it? How everything started right here." Ethan nodded. "Kindness usually does." Lily, drawing quietly beside them, looked up. "Daddy says brave people make the world better." Megan smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "He's right. But sometimes brave people are just kind when it's hard." Soft voiceover tone, camera pans through the diner, from Megan to the smiling staff to the "now hiring a safe, supportive workplace" sign near the door. Voiceover, Daniel Ethan's tone. "People think courage is about fighting battles, but sometimes it's about standing beside someone until they remember their worth." As the rain tapped gently on the windows, Megan looked out at the street, a reflection of herself in the glass, layered with raindrops and neon glow. The trembling hands were gone. In their place stood a woman who had learned that kindness wasn't weakness. It was strength in its most beautiful form. Later that night, as she locked the diner door, she looked up at the peace lily sitting near the window. Its green leaves gleamed softly in the dim light, alive, growing, unshaken. She smiled, whispering to herself. Full circle. Music swells, warm piano, faint echo of laughter, screen fades to black. Ending quote, on screen text. One act of courage can change a life. One act of kindness can change the world.